Excellent. An ale for me. And for my officers. In fact, ales for everyone.
10 backwards. Rick and Wick. And Will. Sometimes Stemmer.
Oh, yes.
10 Backward, a UK podcast about Star Trek. This is Gemma speaking. Here on my right is Will Turland.
Hello.
And Rick Palmer.
Hello.
Rick Everson.
Hello.
And we would like to speak to you today about Sisko.
The Sisko.
The Sisko.
The emissary
Ooh.
of the prophets.
You're joking. I've got 4 pages of notes about Jake Sisko.
Oh, no, Rick.
Have you ever noticed their bum? A bum!
That's not Jake Sisko. That's Malcolm Reed, right? You too have researched the wrong man.
Anyway.
But yeah, this is a podcast about Benjamin Sisko.
It is indeed.
The commander / captain of Deep Space Nine, depending on when he
Can you
got
be a
promoted.
captain of a space station?
He was promoted to captain.
But what is
I guess
what is the
but when he
definition
gets
of a
promoted.
captain?
Sorry.
Do you have to be a captain of something that moves?
I guess the Defiant is on Deep Space Nine when.
Mm.
So, yeah. I guess, yeah, it's a good point. What?
Maybe,
I don't know much
I
about.
don't
It's
know my
like being
military.
I'm the captain of the house.
Maybe one
But
of
there
our listeners
are,
with some sort of naval
but there
military
are-
knowledge could
There are things.
elaborate on that one.
I know that there are naval bases called, like, HMS something, and they won't be a ship, they'll be a base.
Mm.
So, I don't know. And who knows most about the Navy in our
My
group?
imaginary friend Niall.
Did he serve in the
He
Navy?
did indeed.
He's not really a
Did he sail the seven seas? Did he live his life at ease? I'm just going on the village people song in the Navy.
So very different sort of knowledge basis for the but one an 80s song.
Yeah, my knowledge of the Navy is based on that village people song.
I mean, to be fair, Rick's knowledge of the Navy is based on an imaginary friend, and I don't know if that's any better. My knowledge of the Navy is based on the TV series Battlestar Galactica, which is also fictional. So I don't know. I mean,
Well,
I think you can be a captain. I think maybe you can be a captain of a thing that doesn't move. Maybe.
Well, what we lack in knowledge of captains in the Navy, we do make it for a knowledge of Captain Sisko,
yes,
Yes.
yes.
which was, I think, the subject that we planned to cover.
Yes, because we did some research on him.
We're 20 minutes in and we've not even started.
He's a character that's grounded in grief, I would say.
Hmm.
Like he's a character that, yeah. When we first meet him, he's at his lowest ebb. And I don't think any other captain in the Star Trek series is like that. His beginnings are at probably the worst point in his life.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's start with first impressions, I guess. And yeah, I'd agree with that. I think he felt like he was very much meant to be a counterpoint to captains we've seen before. So
Yeah.
you know, Kirk is
Kirk is-
fun and heroic, and
But
go-getting
Kirk is
and,
also Kirk is conflicted. Like there are lots of episodes where Kirk questions himself about being a what it is to be a captain, like the responsibility of being a captain. I don't think Kirk is. This is like a kind of like retrospective on Kirk. I don't think they imagined this when they made it in the 60s, but Kirk is often kind of conflicted by the responsibility of being a captain in terms of what he tells people to do. Picard is the expert diplomat, but he became that after a life of being a rogue almost. Like there's a point in his life where he decides that he needs to take life more seriously, and he becomes the expert diplomat. Janeway is a genius, I would say, and because she's a science officer first, She served as a science officer and becomes a captain, and she's learning to be a captain from a perspective of being brilliant, but maybe not good with people. And Archer is kind of his legacy is his father.
Yeah, and I think Archer's kind of an explorer. You know?
Yeah.
He's very much.
And you know what? I'm gonna say there's this classic Kirk versus Picard debate about who's the best captain. I think all of them have legitimate claims to be best in a way. I think they're all to be fair, all these captains are very different. Like you might say, well, Archer's not going to be the best captain, but in his own way, I think Archer is a good captain.
Yes. Yeah.
Anyway,
and we've got Lorca to factor in as well. And,
he might murder. He's the most murderous,
but he gets things done.
These what's interesting is you sort of sum up a kind of almost a one-word depiction of each one. But I think with Sisko, that's rather hard because there's a lot of aspects to Sisko. In the course of the 7 years, we see him be a father, we see him be a soldier, we see him be a diplomat, we see him be an emissary, we see him kind of be a builder.
Builder is.
I think that's the thing about this. Like, there's Sisko the father, the family man, Sisko the Starfleet officer, and Sisko the emissary. Yeah. And I think he's conflicted in terms of he's trying to be all three of those things at once.
Is he conflicted?
I don't think he's that. I think he's conflicted occasionally around the emissary versus the Starfleet officer.
I think he's conflicted in terms of like there'll be episodes that I watched an episode where he's kind of looking for the city of Bahala, and he's kind of totally obsessed with that aspect, and he forgoes his it's the same time that Bajor's being admitted to the Federation, or if they've decided to, and an admiral turns up and Sisko doesn't give a shit.
But
he's obsessed with finding the city.
Does he advise the Bajorans not to join?
He sees
episode. Yeah,
it's a very Babylon 5 episode because he sees a plague of locusts heading to Cardassia, and I'm sure there's
Cardassia to Bajor.
No, it's going to Cardassia, isn't it?
I thought, yes, but then it's going to go to Bajor, and that's why he's telling Bajor not to join the Federation.
Okay,
and that comes out with the Jem'Hadar, the Dominion, Cardassia joining the Dominion, so the Dominion fleet goes there, and then of course, if Bajor had joined the Federation, they wouldn't be able to stay neutral at the beginning of the war.
They would have been annihilated.
Exactly. So
but
it does pan out.
In Babylon 5, I'm sure there's someone has a vision of locusts arriving on their planet. Is it Londo?
I don't remember it being locusts, but I do. But Londo does have
vision.
He does have a vision.
It's not. It's the ships. It's the shadow ships.
It's the shadows.
Yeah.
Anyway, because we're talking about Rapture, and I think the thrust of that episode is that actually Sisko has been injured and is suffering from an injury that has basically made him particularly susceptible to the prophets, and so he's not actually. When we talk about the conflict between his status as an officer and the emissary, I don't think that's a fair one because he's not operating under normal circumstances in that case.
Yeah, but prophets are often like that, aren't they? Like the prophets, they're tested. Prophets aren't somebody that's. It's a tough life being a prophet, I think, because you're not created by the gods. You're just kind of there to.
You're like an instrument.
You're tested by them. You're an instrument of their power.
You're never there out of your own volition, are you?
No. I mean, actually, what was raised about the concept of free will.
But there's an episode. Where Sisko talks to the prophets, and they say, I think it might be that episode actually, where they say, why they're still asking, why are you here? So the prophets do ask Sisko the right questions, I think. Like the prophets only talk to Sisko in terms of who he is, I would say. Like they don't. I don't think the prophets ever tell him to do anything. They're almost kind of like distant. He has to kind of petition them almost.
I see her like this. Every time I close my eyes, in the darkness, in the blink of an eye, I see her like this.
None of your past experiences help prepare you for this consequence.
And I have never figured out how to live without her.
So you choose to exist here. It is not linear.
No. It's not linear.
And they asking questions like, "Why are you here?" Like in the Emissary, they kind of say, "We're not keeping you here.
Yeah.
You are."
Yeah.
And then, oh no, I'm sorry. It's the season 4 episode where I'm going to open my notes. If I was better prepared, I would have done this earlier on.
Maybe the first time. This is the third podcast.
So it's Accession, and a guy comes through the wormhole, and he's this poet, a Bajoran poet who disappeared like 200 years ago. Yeah,
right.
a quorum, and it's a great episode because it's at a point where like Sisko is kind of happy to let someone else be the emissary.
Yeah, he's quite happy about it.
But then this guy comes in and he's like this super old-fashioned guy who says we should restore like the Bajoran caste system.
Yeah.
And if your name is this, you're an artist, you're a farmer, and it has awful.
Make sure great again.
It's like a horribly authoritarian regime resumes, and a guy who's similar to the Santa guy, Santa murders somebody.
Yeah. Because they didn't follow the cast.
But it's a great episode because Sisko kind of he realizes that he does want to be the emissary.
It's almost like he realizes he's the lesser of the two evils. He's like, well, actually, I was doing pretty okay as the emissary after all.
It's like like a bleak reinterpretation of It's a Wonderful Life, where someone had to get murdered for you to realise that you actually do want to be that thing.
Yeah.
If this guy hadn't been murdered, you know what would have happened. Oh.
But it's a key moment in that sort of. Does he want the emissary / Starfleet?
But it's not about turn. Like he kind of goes, you know what? I do want to be the emissary. I'm kind of. I've been telling myself that I just want to be the Starfleet guy, or and this is the thing. I think this is the thing that drives Sisko is that he's constantly trying to balance everything out. He's 3 things at once.
Yeah.
And he can never be all of them, but he can.
Which echoes the experience of most people watching in a way that like the other captains previously haven't, because that's what they are. They are captain.
Exactly.
Is one thing.
That's true. We've not
especially
seen.
if you're
Sisko is laid bare.
They've
like he's
made Sisko a parent for a reason. And to explain how people have their responsibilities.
Sisko's family life is depicted pretty broadly as well. Like, and all 3 of these, all 3 of these elements are depicted very broadly. Like we see him as the family man with his father and Jake and Cassidy. We see him as the excellent Starfleet officer. And we also see him as the emissary. Like he really grows into that role. Like there's great bits where like some Bajorans will want him to bless their ceremony, and he'll take the time. And I really love that stuff. I think the thing about Sisko is that he doesn't have much downtime. Like he's always doing something, but he's also the character that can handle that. Like he's very driven. Like he's massively driven character. It's great. Like he's great. Like I really like.
You love him.
Well, he's like
so.
But it's so interesting to kind of review this character. Like it's.
I think
I underestimated the way that they did a great job depicting this character.
And one of the other journeys he goes on, because I think you've summed up really nicely his growing into and accepting the emissary role. One of the other ones I think is the way he goes from not wanting to be there to being, to ending up wanting to build his own house on Bajor.
Yes, that's true.
I think you see the roots of his sort of moving away from being earthbound and taking this whole different look at the way the Federation works in the galaxy and how it doesn't translate so well into a place like Bajor, and he's coming down more on the side of things. I think one of those probably best moments is in part 2 of the Marquee, when he goes off onto this epic speech rant about the problem being Earth. Because on Earth it's a paradise. You look out the window of Starfleet headquarters, it's a paradise. Out here in the demilitarised zone, the problems haven't been solved yet, and basically the Federation doesn't get it. They don't understand life out here, and Sisko's been out there now. He does get it, and he just goes into this massive rant. I think that's the first point where you think he's become separate from that, and he's starting to have a step back from the Federation and have a colder look. And I think that's brilliant because it sets into motion what Deep Space Nine does so well, which is to just pick apart the philosophy of Star Trek and just really get under the skin of it.
Definitely.
I was going to say that speech really exemplifies what DS9 did really well. Which is exactly what you said.
Challenging preconceptions. As well, definitely. And I watched the episode Second Sight in season 2. And I noted that in that episode, he says to the woman he meets, who's like a psychic projection of another woman, he tells her one of the things he loves about the station. So he loves the station. But season 2, he loves the station.
Yeah, season 1, he wasn't even sure he wanted Picard to
he encouraged O'Brien to take dumps on all around the station. Some kind of like weird joke.
This is unconfirmed.
Beginning of series 3, The Search, when after the Dominion has become an apparent threat, Sisko goes back to Earth and comes back on the Defiant, and after the Defiant makes its appearance, you see Jake in the quarters knocking back some Edenian spice puddings, and Sisko's got all this crazy old art out of storage on Earth he's putting up, and he sort of says to himself, he says to Jake, when did that happen? When did this Cardassian monstrosity become home? And I think that's a really key turning point, that this has now become more than his assignment. And I think definitely follows on distinctly from what you were saying about Second Sight.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and Star Trek's greatest quality, I would say, is that it has stories where characters are kind of, their preconceptions of things are challenged. And they learn something not through being right, but through being wrong. And I think DS9 and Sisko in general works that way. Like he learns things through his role, like we were saying in the previous podcast, through being a father and through being a commander and a captain and being an emissary. Like it's, I never realised kind of how well that they kind of told his story throughout 7 seasons.
I think very early on they start throwing in these seeds that he's willing to bend these rules a bit. If you think about Captive Pursuit with the Tosk, all through that, Sisko's very much like, right, first contact procedures. Oh, hang on, Tosk doesn't really want to make contact. No, well, we can't keep him here. And then the hunters turn up and invade the station and take Tosk, and he's just like, prime directive, nothing we can do. And O'Brien, it's because it's an O'Brien episode. O'Brien has this revelation from Quark about changing the rules, which is key to O'Brien because he's obviously from the Enterprise, and that would never have occurred to him. So he orchestrates this elaborate breakout for Tosk, and then afterwards, after Tosk's got free, Sisko is chewing O'Brien out, and he's giving him this massive bollocking, and he's like,
another stunt like this, and your wife won't have to complain about the conditions here anymore. Do I make myself clear?
Like Brian's like, oh, I'm really sorry. It goes off, and then he just turns at the door and says,
I was surprised by one thing, sir.
What's that?
Well, I knew I couldn't override all the security seals in the station. And I figured once you and the constable located us, well, it'd be over. We'd find ourselves locked behind some force field somewhere.
I guess that one got by us.
And it's just a really nice moment that Sisko's like, I'm going to uphold all the Starfleet stuff, but really, I've let you go through this because I know it's right.
Yeah.
He
And
really
it's that flexibility with the rules.
Sisko really reads people.
Border.
Like he's great at reading people.
He has a similar kind of thing with. There's a moment with Worf in. It's maybe in season 6 where.
It's the episode where Dax is like fatally or like wounded, and
Worf basically sort of kind of goes against orders and his duty, and he goes back for Dax, and it compromises.
Yeah,
mission.
They basically fail the mission because the Cardassian is supposed to retrieve dies.
Yeah,
and Sisko totally chews him out for that, and he does the sort of commanding officer.
So you're probably never going to be a captain now.
Yeah. Specifically says, as your commanding officer, I have to tell you made the wrong choice.
And to be completely honest, you probably won't be offered a command on your own after this. I understand. I have also issued new orders. You and Jotzi are not to be assigned to a mission on your own ever again. And one last thing. As a man who had a wife, if Jennifer had been lying in that clearing, I wouldn't have left her either.
That's
and it's it's a nice moment. It's a nice moment.
I think they paced Sisko's development pretty well. So by season 3, at the end of season 3, he becomes captain. Season 4.
Is that in? Is it Adversary?
Yes.
The season 3.
Which is brilliant. And season 4. In season
episode.
4, he knows he wants to be Emissary, and then season 4 to season 7, there's a Dominion War. So you have that progression as a Starfleet officer as well.
Yeah.
So they time his progression really well. I think
he's a very fierce commander as well. I think in terms of being a Starfleet officer, he's very intense. Intense is a great word.
Definitely.
Yeah, he is intense.
Yeah.
And ruthless.
I'd be really intimidated by him.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I have to admit, of all the captains, I wouldn't want to serve under Sisko because I would probably goof.
And if he had to chew you out, oh my word!
I would though, because he's the captain. He'll have you around and cook you some amazing food. He'll take you to a baseball game.
Jambalaya.
You will not have to wait 7
or
years.
aubergine in Emissary. I think he mentions aubergine stew. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to make some aubergine stew.
My father was a gourmet chef. I will make for you his famous aubergine stew.
I'm gonna do it this week. I'm gonna buy an aubergine. I'm gonna make some aubergine stew.
Steam some asna for Dax as well.
I love to steam some asna for Dax.
What was the point? Oh yeah, so I think season 2 there's an episode called Paradise where Sisko and O'Brien encounter a little settlement of humans, and there's a genetic field that stops all technology working, so they're kind of a really back to basics settlement.
Is that where he's horribly tortured?
Basically, Sisko's locked in a little box.
Yeah, the black hole, like a black hole of Calcutta kind of deal.
It's a tiny little boxes in the baking heat. And
Oh
he's
yeah, I hate. That's a terrifying.
They let him
episode.
out and tell him, right, you can come out, you can have water, you just have to accept our ways. And Sisko's literally, he says doesn't say a word, but you can sort of like, not having any of this bollocks.
It's like an awful version of. It's like an awful version of Cool Hand Luke.
Yeah, and it's just like he's just going to get straight back in the box because he's not going to compromise his principles. And then I think, and I have to talk about this because it's one of my all-time favourites. When you don't compromise principles, you go after marquee traitors like Eddington.
Yeah.
And to the point that you will fucking poison another planet's atmosphere to be the villain to catch him. And,
so Sisko's a character that will go.
It's flawed.
But that's not principles, though, is it? That is revenge because he is personally slighted there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, with Eddington, that's a weak. That's where it's a weakness.
It does take it personally.
But
is it personal? Is it about the uniform?
No.
You betrayed your uniform. You betrayed me.
If you look at Sisko, you can understand that he might have some sympathy with McKee in general.
Because in the Maquis, like
it's Eddington.
But there's that guy that's his best friend. The other guy, what's his name?
Cal Hudson.
Cal Hudson. His best friend is a Maquis. So with Eddington, it's like Eddington got one over on him, and Sisko can't take that.
Yeah.
I agree with Gemma. I think
freaking intense about it though, isn't he?
Yeah. Maybe he's intense because Eddington keeps using Les Miserables references.
I just love the bit where maybe it's time.
It's not like a musical. It's not like a musical. It's very serious, Eddington.
But that's interesting. That makes Sisko like a human, relatable character. That he we all feel the urge for revenge and
constantly.
That's a kind of a dark side of humanity that.
There's that fantastic bit when he literally he's going to be the villain and he has to make Eddington give himself up, and Eddington's like you can't even see what's doing it, and he's just shouting, "Mr. Wolf, prepare another torpedo." But there's also the bit with the punch bag earlier when he's like, I had him for dinner. I took him to a baseball game. And he beat me.
Oh, no wonder he rebelled.
It's like, what's the excuse? Is he a being with 7 lifetimes of experience? Is he a changeling? And it's like, no. And then he's just like, he beat me and smashes.
Yeah. You're so right.
Yeah.
You can't take it.
Yeah, it's the intensity. Of
beat me.
He played his hand well.
He played me all right. And what is my excuse? Is he a changeling? No. Is he a being with 7 lifetimes of experience? No. Is he a wormhole alien? No. He's just a man like me. And he beat me.
So that's. Yeah.
But you can't picture Picard doing that, can you?
No.
You maybe could Kirk. You maybe could. But it's all around again. I think it sort of comes back to that intensity, that sort of passion of
Picard
Sisko,
had to take on Sarek's memories to get that angry.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, that's another great episode. But yeah, like Picard was he's just better at kind of channeling his rage up until he gets assimilated by the Borg, in the films.
Yeah.
Like Nemesis is Sisko Picard, I would say.
Yeah,
he's full of rage. He's so angry in that film. He's so angry.
I think Sisko's maybe a bit more. He's a bit more a human, a bit more relatable than Picard. Picard's like the best of us, and Sisko's sort of like the. I don't know. He's
human,
and kind of compromised and. Yeah, more interesting.
When you get to say in the pale moonlight.
I was going to say that, but then I thought maybe that should be the climax of the podcast. But no, let's do it. Let's hit it.
Let's climax early.
Yeah, that's my motto.
That's how you got 2 children.
That's right.
It's all right.
Yeah.
Hey, they're lovely.
I know.
It's not all bad.
That's biology. Just unsatisfying sexually, and that's fine to say. It's fine to say that. I'll accept it.
All for blow and not for show.
Well, if that was the case, we wouldn't have 2 children.
But what you have to
accept wait a minute.
Procreation isn't about satisfaction. Or pleasure or happiness.
That's why pandas are going extinct. Because they hate it.
So the great thing about In the Pale Moonlight.
Oh yeah, Sisko. I forgot. This isn't Gemma, the relationship podcast.
Yeah,
you can find that on www. I'm joking.
Essentially, in the Pale Moonlight, the setup is that they need to get the Romulans into the war. The Romulans they signed a non-aggression pact with the Dominion, but in order for the Dominion to be defeated, they've identified that they need to get the Romulans in on their side.
And we should say actually, you can. We've done a podcast where we go into some extreme depth of the Pale Moonlight, and you can catch that on. I think it's part 3 of our war. Quadrology.
I think our war quadrology is is good work.
Yes,
if I may say so myself.
We really hit In the Pale Moonlight hard, and also do impressions of the Romulan guy who goes, "It's a fake." We do that a lot.
And this might lead into our next episode, because Sisko kind of encourages a conspiracy in that he creates false evidence of something that it's a false flag operation. Now, conspiracy fans will know that Earth is full of false flag operations, in terms of things like the Vietnam War, the Gulf of Tonkin. There's the Gulf of Tonkin incident, which got America into the Vietnam War. Maybe even Pearl Harbor. Maybe even the American-Mexican War in the 1840s, which led to the American Civil War. Anyway, but yeah, Sisko gets himself involved in a conspiracy, and he learns the price of that in terms of his morals.
Yeah, he basically sacrifices his own ethics and morality for the greater good, doesn't he? And he kind of has to live with that,
but he can.
The
thing about that episode. No.
Can you sacrifice your own morality for the greater good? Because if you feel that that's for the greater good,
as soon as you do, it's not your morality. Yeah. I would say Sisko. He knows what he's doing. The reason that he punches Garrick at the end is some kind of like last effort to say this was wrong, but he knows it was right.
Yeah, he's always punching himself.
He's punching himself.
Garrick, I think.
In the Garrick.
Yeah, Garrick's like, stop punching yourself.
Yeah, stop punching yourself. It may be my favourite DS9 episode. Because it deals with a very serious subject, and it deals with how good people do bad things for the right reason. Like, I think Sisko it's a fictional world, but I think Sisko won the Dominion War with that act.
Yeah.
And all it cost
was the lives of a criminal, and I can't remember what he said. Do you know what? I'm going to
put that line in later.
And if your conscience is bothering you, you should soothe it with the knowledge that you may have just saved the entire Alpha Quadrant, and all it cost was the life of one Romulan senator, one criminal, and the self-respect of one Starfleet officer.
There are many Sisko Garrick episodes, and I'm going to go ahead and say Garrick is my favourite DS9 character.
Oh, God, yeah.
We need to do a whole podcast on Garrick, don't we?
It's brilliant. Like, but I don't like Sisko at the end. Sisko kind of it's all to camera, isn't it? Like it's like a confession almost.
Yeah, and he
kind of debates what he's done, but I think he was fine with it. In so much as
I think he was trying to convince himself, because
I don't think he is. I think
we had this debate in part 3.
Yeah,
I think
I've always felt because he has to say it again. If you have to say it again, who are you trying to convince?
But it is ambiguous.
I think he can live with it, but it's just the weight of what he's done. Like it's.
Can he live with the fact that he can live with it?
I think he will have to. But
I think people will try and tell. I think people will try and convince themselves of their best self. I think it's a weird thing that people do. Humans do.
You have a story about
yourself. Whereas there's that true self, and then there's that self that you try and tell yourself that you are.
Yeah,
so I think
you have your own narrative, I guess, don't you?
Sisko, this would have never happened. Those series of events would have never happened if Sisko didn't really want to do them. Deep down, he wanted to. Deep down, he wanted to win the war.
Yeah.
He's that character. He wants to win. Be it as somebody that he was. I think he was doing it for the right reasons. He's as a father, he wants to protect his family. as a Starfleet officer, he wants to protect the Federation, and as the emissary, he wants to protect Bajor.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And murdering and being a war criminal does that essentially. I mean, murdering someone, being complicit in murder, saves the Alpha Quadrant. It absolutely does. It's a pivotal moment in the history of the galaxy. So maybe I imagine he can say, well, he's just able to be objective. Like, he's amazingly objective, I would say. That's another thing I would say Sisko is. He has an amazing ability to be objective in most scenes. Like, he can, like you guys were saying, he can read situations. That's by being objective. But he's also subjective because he loves like jambalaya and like he can like dial it down and be subjective and go, Dad, why are you going off on these wild adventure? Why have you left my grandson on Deep Space Nine? Oh, I didn't know. He's a grown man. Ah. Yeah.
As we touched on again about Sisko reading people, and I think one of the great examples of how he can control the situation is Waltz when he has no control over the situation. He's injured. He's stranded on a planet. Dukat is with him. It's like him and Dukat Dukat's clearly got the upper hand. But the whole time, I think Sisko is in control because he's sus Dukat. He knows what Dukat wants, what he needs. Dukat craves his approval and his respect.
That's such a good episode. That's like waiting for Godot or something. It's like a play. It's like a little play.
You get to this point at the culmination of the episode where Sisko is essentially manipulated Dukat into going into this epic rant because he knows Dukat's a Cardassian, loves the sound of his own voice, and he's really just let rip about everything he would have wished he'd done to the Bajorans. And Sisko's basically knows that he gets to the point where he's so distracted his own speech when he can whack him around the head with a stick, knock him out. He's got complete control of that, despite the fact he's in the worst situation he could possibly be.
I read that that kind of episode was written because the writers had lots of letters about people who were sympathising with Dukat, and they realised that they made Dukat too soft. Well, not too soft, but too likeable.
Yeah,
and this guy is like a full-blown Nazi.
Yeah.
It's a Nazi.
And I think they've really reaffirmed that in Waltz. That is the
it's
the
a great
reset button for Dukat back to to the concept. I think he'd gone up and down. He'd been an ally. He'd been an acquaintance. He'd been an enemy. But at this point, he was really the epitome of the nemesis. Then, wasn't he?
Yeah. I'm reading a book at the moment about Operation Paperclip, where the United States government kind of brought Nazi scientists over to America after World War II. I mean, there are lots of characters that sound like Dukat. They're very charismatic, and they don't realise that they've done anything wrong. Like, they expect to be treated in a certain way. It's so weird. Like, it's such a it's a brilliant book. It's but yeah, it's there are people that can't quite get that they've done awful things. They're still able to be compassionate, but in a very limited way. Like when it relates to them.
I think Voyager does a very good sort of thing on that with the I can't remember the name of the episode, but B'Elanna's incapacitated by a creature, and so the
they get a Cardassian
scientist. But all basically the sum total of his knowledge is based upon barbaric experiments he's done upon Bajoran prisoners.
Because they were told, to do it. Like that's another thing in the book. Like there's an awful bit where they're looking for these Luftwaffe scientists, and they're interviewing. They don't have enough to kind of get them for war crimes. They're talking to them, and essentially they're saying, well, we just did it because we were told to. We were given orders to do this thing, and essentially they were like what these Luftwaffe scientists would. It was experiments to kind of help their pilots, where they would like freeze people to death and then try and bring them back. But I think it was just what we were told to do. Like we were given these orders and we did it. And yeah, like Dukat is that kind of character. Like he's capable of emotion, but it's only framed within what he wants to do. It's not
his narrow viewpoint. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're sort of veering
Anyway,
slightly
it's
off
kind of a
Sisko.
dark.
Yeah.
Apologies for getting into the dark history of mankind, but
We've covered some good threads on Sisko's various storylines through that.
Yeah.
Should we just go around the table a couple of times on some key Sisko moments that we all enjoy?
Yes.
That sounds like an interesting exercise.
I want to call out the Sisko's relationship with Cassidy Yates.
Ooh.
And how so that's really interesting because Cassidy Yates he's lost his wife in Emissary, as we know. It takes him quite a while to start thinking about new relationships. Cassidy Yates is she's like a freighter pilot, isn't she? Captain.
Yeah.
So she's not sort of caught up in the Federation in that sort of way. There's no, as we discussed in the we looked at Picard's girlfriends in a previous episode, which I don't know if that'll be I don't know when that's going to go out. Actually,
I think we're going to put that before. So you will have hopefully have heard this. If not,
yeah,
go to our archive. It should be there.
Yeah. And yeah, so Picard has a relationship with someone on the ship and that is an issue because he's the captain and he has to order into certain situations that he feels that his decisions are compromised in that way. Whereas Sisko doesn't have that with Cassidy Yates because she's sort of outside of that. He can't give her orders in that way. But there's a point where it turns out she's complicit in aiding the Marquis.
Yeah.
And he basically has to kind of arrest her and send her to prison. That's pretty interesting.
He does
it.
It's
pretty interesting that he does it. And yeah, what a tough decision that must have been. But Sisko's a character who I don't know. Sometimes he'll sort of step beyond maybe what he wants to do, and he'll make a decision on whether he's going to stick to the letter of the law or not, and he'll have to do it. And I don't know. He's
his own kind of standard for moral choices. Like he lives by his own standard.
Do we feel that if that situation had come up in any of the other series, would A, the captain have made the same decision, and B, would that series have just written it around it so we didn't have to?
Yeah.
Because my feeling is B would have happened.
Yeah.
I think DS9 would have had the balls to go through that and make the captain.
Maybe because it's set in the space station, it's more. Maybe
the consequences are always there in DS9.
Like if you're on a ship, and if a character does something wrong, they have to leave the entire show.
It feels like Voyager would have found a way around it, like an easy way of not totally addressing that situation.
I think there are some Voyager episodes where characters do something bad, and if it was anywhere else, you would be off. Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
I like Sisko's interactions with characters that he might not normally like his interactions with Quark and things like that. Like there are the situations where, like we were saying earlier on, he reads people really well. Interactions with characters that he wouldn't normally interact with, like Ram and Nog. Mostly the Ferengi. The Ferengi get a pretty hard deal of it.
But he does start out with a knowledge of Ferengi, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. But I don't think he likes Quark. Like I think, So, but yeah, like I in general, the thing I like about Sisko is that he reads people really well. He's knowledgeable of a lot of things, and that's the thing I like about him the most. He's maybe the character that can kind of he uses a blend of knowledge and experience and moxie to get things done. He's not kind of completely beholden to Starfleet or any of the things expected of him. He's his own person, and he does the best he can with each of those things.
I wanted to highlight a particular moment at the end of Past Tense Part 1 where they've ended up going back in time by accident, and Sisko and Bashir are wandering around the Sanctuary District where the the city of San Francisco in just a few years from now, in fact, tidies away its homeless people into an area where they can't, upset everyone else.
That would never happen.
Oh, never.
And during the course of it, Sisko realises he's just quietly. Sisko's remained very calm. He's just quietly assessing the situation, working out when they are, and he realises they might be quite close to the Bell riots, where this sort of situation sort of gets inflamed. And although they're trying to keep out of it, they end up getting into some scrapes, and they find that the Bell riots are called. They know the Bell riots are named after Gabriel Bell, but he is killed before the riots occur, thanks to their presence. And then right at the end, despite the fact he knows what Gabriel Bell's fate is in the riots is also to die, Sisko just steps forward and introduces himself as Gabriel Bell.
The name is Bell. Gabriel Bell.
To restore the future to them, or the history to himself.
He's always going to be Gabriel Bell, I suppose.
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily a predestination or it's going back and causing a problem. And then, because I think when Gabriel Bell is killed prematurely, that's when the Defiant in the future present day of Star Trek Deep Space Nine loses all contact with Starfleet, because then it all gets a bit
right.
So that is, the timeline is changed. So I don't think it's predestination, but yeah, just the point where he steps back forward there, ready to sacrifice himself to restore it. That's always struck me as a massive key moment in Sisko. And as well, I just flipping love past tense, and I think we should maybe do an episode on it one day.
Yeah,
I agree.
Be cool.
It's potentially, I think, the epitome of Star Trek stories in terms of its social commentary.
Is it a 3-parter?
It's a 2-parter.
It's similar to Sitting on the Edge of Forever, I think, in terms of someone going back to a point in time where society was struggling and
Gemma, can you think of any key Sisko moments that we
I have not
already
done my homework on this, so no. I'm so sorry.
I understand. Well, I've thought of another Sisko moment that I think you would like, Gemma.
Okay, so this is mine.
So at the end of Call to Arms, where this is the season 5 finale, where they basically they lose DS9. This is a massive moment in the whole. So this isn't just a Sisko moment. This is a moment that really stands out to me in DS9 history, where a Dominion Cardassian fleet retake DS9 and that's it. So Sisko loses DS9 and he leaves his baseball behind.
Yeah.
And of course, he's gonna go back and reclaim said baseball.
And instantly Descartes recognises the message of that baseball, doesn't he?
What is that?
A message from Sisko.
I don't understand.
He's letting me know he'll be back.
There's a great line interaction with Nog as well, where Nog says, "We're going to make them wish they'd never." What did he say? We're going to make them wish they'd never.
Sorry, they ever set foot in the Alpha Quadrant.
You're damn right we are. And it's great.
Yeah.
I really enjoy the speech he gives on the promenade right before they leave, as well. I think culminates saying something like,
"I will not rest until I stand with you again. Here. In this place where I belong."
Which is also, and then I think that's underscored by the baseball. And that intent is always he's coming back.
Definitely.
And I think that highlights that thing we were discussing in terms of how, from not wanting to be there, he's become so enamoured. This is now his home.
Yeah,
definitely.
And he sort of becomes a bit of a war leader in that respect. I mean, in sort of subsequent episodes, he's pretty keen making some military decisions.
We see the soldier, definitely, don't we?
He's very much pushing the retake of DS9 in season 6, isn't he? He's the guy coordinating and leading that. That's pretty interesting.
Well, that's what's good there. And at the end of that, in the culmination of that 6-parter, he becomes the guy who goes in and pleads with the gods to intervene and gets them to.
Yeah.
I mean, what other Starfleet captain has done that?
Indeed.
And that's a pretty epic moment, because I always felt that had the potential, if they hadn't done that right, that had the potential to be the most massive cop out in all of history.
It's a borderline cop out. I'd say it's not. I don't think it's 100% satisfying, but I think they just about.
It's a big episode with a lot of action, and there's a lot of build up to that moment, and so it's having the point where the gods come in and make it all okay. I think the key point and the most important takeaway from that is that the Sisko demands this of us, and a penance must be exacted, and so there's a consequence, and I think that consequence is then going to inform the story for the rest of the time. If you didn't have that, it could have potentially been a bit of a disastrous end. But I think coming from that goes on to bigger things. So that's. But yeah, Sisko's so flipping intense. He's gone in and asked gods to come in and step in, and they've done it.
Yeah, it's how badass he is.
Exactly.
It's interesting. I suppose one thing we haven't got too far into is Sisko as a father, and that's one of his roles. I think when I first watched DS9, that wasn't an aspect I could particularly associate with or was particularly interested with. But now I'm a little bit older, and also
I think it resonates massively.
It's a very.
I think so.
It's a very intimate relationship.
It does.
I would say, like he kisses Jake a lot, like very physically.
That's true. He does, and that's interesting. And again, you can't imagine any other Star Trek captain.
Can you imagine Picard being like that?
God no. He shouts at
his son would call him Sir.
Yeah, definitely. We'd see the back of Picard's hand, or the back of a bottle of Chateau Picard.
And the most incredibly awkward hug between Kirk and David Marcus at the end of Star Trek 2. And there's the special circumstance that because he wasn't able to be there.
No, and he was an adult man at that point, so it's the first hug. It's weird.
But no, I think Sisko's relationship with Jake is fantastic.
Yeah. And I really like the stuff where he's sort of struggling with, Jake's relationship with Nog, and he's kind of disapproving of that, and he's trying to be involved in it. But then he sort of changes his opinion of Nog when Nog wants to join Starfleet, and that's a really interesting.
When it comes down to it, he backs Nog into Starfleet. So again, when you say, as we talked about in our podcast on Emissary, where Nog started to where Nog ends up, and that's because Sisko took that chance on him and backed him.
And maybe that's again Sisko being able to be objective. Like I think he didn't really like Nog. I think he probably had a problem with Nog for a long time, but he was maybe able to take a step back and say, this is a guy who's he wants this. He's serious about this, and actually, maybe I need to look past my
prejudices.
And
I think maybe some of that is Sisko didn't particularly like Ferengi, but now and again Quark would pop up with a little bit of an uncomfortable truth about the way the Federation thought of Ferengi. I think the Jem'Hadar is a good episode to highlight that. Quark really sort of hits Sisko with it in that one, in the way that the Federation sort of looks down and condescends on Ferengi, and that continues through a lot of the time, isn't it? So. But it's good that Sisko does react and change, and is then willing to give Nog that chance, and Rom as well. Ends up officiating at Rom's marriage ceremony.
Yeah, I really remember the episode where Sisko really insists that Jake joins him for it. He kind of builds like a solar sail kind of old. Is it like an old style Bajoran ship to kind of prove that Bajorans could have had space travel back in those days, and Jake doesn't really want to go along. He sort of forces him into it, and I don't remember that being a particularly gripping episode when I first watched it, but in kind of revisiting it, it's more relevant now as a father, and it's nice. There's something really nice about the episode, and interesting that Sisko's whole motivation there is just trying to engage Jake in something.
I think it's one of the beauties of Deep Space Nine is probably you can pick almost any episode there, and go back and find depths to it you've maybe not noticed before.
Yeah.
Possibly not Meridian, that planet that appears once every 100 years or so, and Dax wants to stay there to be with the guy who she has no chemistry with. But,
what about the Muse? That's that. It's a pretty weak episode. I seem to think. Is that
I think
the
there's a
one
strong performance from Odo in that maybe redeems that one.
Okay.
But the one, the Prophet and Lace, where
I was going to say Prophet and Lace.
Yeah, maybe we really have to dig down into the hidden depths there.
But yeah, I mean, I think now I'm a father, like juggling that sort of family work relationship is a challenge. And imagine trying to juggle a work family relationship and also an emissary relationship.
And all those baseball games.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel a bit more for what Sisko was going through.
Yeah.
So, should we touch on how Sisko's story kind of ends in DS9?
Yeah,
I guess as a natural conclusion.
Yeah.
Because he joins the Prophets.
He does.
Never to return, seemingly.
Well,
potentially.
I guess Goldie Cat becomes the emissary of the Par Wraiths.
Yeah.
So it's like an eternal. I guess they're lost in a. They fall into the fire pits.
I always think it's a little harsh that the Par Wraiths give their emissary Goldie Cat like super strength and telekinetic powers, and the Prophets have given their emissary Sisko fuck off.
Yeah.
I guess that's kind of like that's a bit like the Jedi and the Sith, isn't it? Like the Sith have cooler powers.
Yeah,
I
they can
guess.
shoot lightning out of their fingers, and the Jedi can be really peaceful.
Yeah,
they can
gently persuade people to.
I'm just saying,
do things. Sometimes.
Sisko is lucky that Kywin turned up, jumped up in a nightgown and waved that book around to distract a cop for a minute.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's his. Sisko's end is kind of. Again, I think it's a pretty brave choice to make for a character.
Yeah.
He dies in a way.
Well,
yeah, I guess he
doesn't die,
but he the sort of human man of Sisko ceases to be. I think I think you sort of get the impression that they sort of leave it a little bit open. I think there's a line where he says he will return one day.
He's quite emphatic about that, and I think there was, because originally he said he wouldn't be.
Yeah.
That was the original script, but Avery Brooks objected to that because of the message that sent about, basically about a man of colour abandoning a pregnant wife.
Yeah.
And that was like very disturbing. So.
Yeah, I read that as well. That he insisted on having that change, and I think I prefer that. I think I prefer the idea that he had the intention to return.
When will you be back?
It's hard to say. Maybe a year. Maybe yesterday. But I will be back.
And I will be waiting.
Absolutely.
Even if maybe he never did. I know in the DS9 novels, that he does return. I think.
Spoiler warning. Yeah, he does.
But I've not read them, so I can't confirm it. But Rick has confirmed that. But at least in the show, that's how they end it. I think it was a good ending for him. I think ultimately he sort of sacrificed himself, but he wasn't gone. He was with the Prophet, so we know that's kind of a real thing. So
I mean, he says things like they have so much to teach him and he has so much to do. So you kind of feel like maybe there's more purpose for Sisko and Bajor in the future.
Yeah.
Although we never get to see it, that DS9 movie that I just wanted and that there was never any talk of, but I always wanted it. It just never happened. But,
I guess DS9, unlike TNG, DS9 had a proper ending.
But I mean, there was scope to have an epic, Sisko returns to face the ultimate threat kind of a story if they'd ever wanted. But at the same time, it is so beautifully bookended. If you watch Emissary and then What You Leave Behind, it works so well, and you don't need to carry it on. So
yeah, I get the sense Avery Brooks wouldn't want to. I don't know if he'd want to come back to that role now. It feels like he sort of moved on.
It sounds like now that he prefers to talk about a mix of his work rather than, and when you're part of Star Trek, you can probably find a lot of focus purely on that, because there's a lot of people who want to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
And I can see a lot of actors may become frustrated when they've done other work that seems to be forgotten and ignored.
Yeah,
but then I've heard stories from people, where they've met him, and he has been amazing in the way he's talked about Star Trek with them, and really, I think when he was working on it, by all accounts, he was so into it. He was so into the work and so into the story and the character, and he put his best into it.
Yeah.
As the best captains do.
I don't know if he's my favourite Star Trek captain. I think that crown has to go to Picard, but that's because he was my in on Star Trek. Really, he was my first big captain. But I think Sisko's definitely up there. He's a great captain. He's the most rounded, maybe the most interesting and more. He's the captain we get the most depth. On maybe
most real, I would say.
Yeah,
the most kind of.
I put Sisko as my number one, but it's a close thing with Picard.
Yeah.
Because like you, Picard was my in. And there's always going to be that nostalgia, but in the way that Next Gen's my favourite series, but that's placed in my heart as the first, and the nostalgia that maybe overweighs the fact that I feel maybe DS9 is technically a better series.
Yeah. I'd agree with that.
But Sisko is my number one captain.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
I don't know. I have to think in terms of. Is it different? Captains that I like the most, and captains that I want to serve under are slightly different. I would say.
Yeah.
So I would say Picard's probably my favourite captain, but maybe Archer's the captain I want to serve under, because I think that might be the easiest. Not easiest, but I might fit in the most.
Okay.
Like if I was if I was going to be a character on a ship, I would be like a xenoarchaeologist, because I did an archaeology degree, so I guess that's my thing I'd do. And I think maybe a xenoarchaeologist on Enterprise might be my best fit, because it'd be new, the mission would be new, and things that I'm not to say I wouldn't do my duty, but I feel like that might be the atmosphere where I'd work best.
Yeah.
Like I'm not somebody that this seems to be getting into a me podcast.
You've thought about it.
I'm not all about rank and stuff, and the series outside of Enterprise seem to be a lot about achieving rank and getting somewhere, So I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd be best on the ship where I could just do my thing and not worry about rank. And I think maybe Enterprise would be the best one.
Okay. Gemma, how about you? How do you feel about Sisko in terms of how he fits in with the other captains?
He's arguably more interesting than any of the. But I have to agree that I think Picard is my favourite of the captains.
Yeah.
But I don't know why. I can't put my finger on why. But I think it's he's the in for us all. He's who we think of, and it's an emotive choice.
It's really nice wine. lovely wine.
He's more comfortable. He's much more comfortable, isn't he?
He's not comfortable with children.
He is under his lamp.
I think the reasons for Picard don't matter as long as you enjoy it. That'll go back to lessons there.
I like it.
It doesn't matter so long as you enjoy it.
Yeah, maybe Sisko wouldn't be comfortable to be around all the time. He is intense, as we've touched on, and he's
you would always have to be on your game, wouldn't you?
Maybe you would. I don't know, but I'd trust Sisko to kind of do the right things.
Sisko cooks awesome food, and as a Hufflepuff, that's a very important factor to me. So I would be absolutely captain. I shall be there.
Do Hufflepuffs like cooking?
No, we like eating.
Oh. Are you a Hufflepuff?
Hey, what are you saying?
You like eating?
I think I might be a.
Are we not all Hufflepuffs?
I think I'm a Ravenclaw.
Oh.
I think I heard that Ravenclaws like Ravenclaws seem like people that like just sitting in a library reading about stuff.
Yeah, no.
So,
I might be.
I do like eating though.
Yeah.
I'm not cool enough for Gryffindor, and I'm not rich enough for Slytherin. So yeah, it's either Hufflepuff or Ravenclaw, I would say.
I'd probably Hufflepuff.
We're all Hufflepuff.
We're all Hufflepuff.
Don't fight it.
Yeah, I probably am Hufflepuff.
You wish you were a Ravenclaw.
I like reading.
Ruddy Hufflepuff.
Yeah, I am Hufflepuff.
On that non-Star Trek note, I think we've really covered Sisko well.
I think we have.
Or at least we're an hour in. It's time to end the podcast and move on.
I think we've covered the essentials.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, cheers. This is going to be a nightmare to edit because we reference literally hundreds of episodes in this podcast. That's going to be tough to find clips for.
As long as then you find the clip where Sisko sings "The Best Is Yet to Come" with Vic Fontaine.
Oh, now I have to do that as well.
Yeah. But it's a beautiful moment.
Where's that? Is that season 7? Give me a clue. Is
Bada
that season
Bing, Bada
7?
Bang. Season 7, right before the end of the series arc.
I'll find it. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you
Thank you
much
for listening,
guys.
and see you next time.
Cheers.
Bye.
Love you. Bye. Thank you.
Did you just say love you again?
Yes, I did.
We should all say love you back.
The best is yet to come, and babe, won't it be fine?
You think you've seen the sun, but you ain't seen it shine.
Wait till the warm-up's underway. Wait till our lips have met.
Wait till you see that sunshine day. You ain't seen nothing yet.
Do you realize how incredible this is?
It's tradition.
You ever noticed her bum? What? Her bum.
Oh no!
Enough of this self-indulgence.
Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. If you want to get in touch with us, our website is www.lowerdecksradio.co.uk. You can reach us on the Twitters at 10Backward, 10 being the number and backward being the word backward. We're also on Facebook at www.facebook.com/10Backward podcast. You can also email us at crew@lowerdecksradio.co.uk. On a personal, individual level, my Twitter is @WilTurland. Rick Everson's Twitter is @TrekFanRick. And Rick Palmer's Twitter is @Mr. Imhotep.
Hi, thank you again for listening to the podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, you might consider supporting us. We now have a Patreon where people can pledge small amounts to fund our ongoing projects like keeping our website up to date, new audio equipment as we're going along, and potentially opportunities to expand our content. You can go look at this at patreon.com/lowerdecksradio. If you don't feel you can donate but would still like to support us, we would love it if you could subscribe to us on however you get your podcasts, through iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or we're on various third-party apps. And if you could leave us a review on any of those, that would be fantastic and we'd be very appreciative.
Thanks again for listening, and please tune in for more podcasts from the 10 Backward crew.
Let's make sure that history never forgets the name.
10 Backward?
Laddie, don't you think you should rephrase that?
10 Backward.
10 Backward.
My father was a gourmet chef. I will make for you his famous aubergine stew.